everyone to our panel on aligning organizational priorities and women's needs across the career stages and fields. We're going to discuss the influence of unforeseen changes and trends that impact organizations and the human capital. We're not only going to dig into the root causes of these issues, but we're also going to refer to the stories and experiences of a panel of experts who have a variety of experiences and knowledge on this matter. And we're going to really discuss what organizations have done to enhance their hybrid work models and improve performance, productivity, and engagement. My name is Amelia Golkin, and I'm currently a senior at Rutgers University, New Brunswick, double majoring in finance and business analytics. And I'm very excited to be introducing our panel today. Very talented women, and I hope you learn a variety of information regarding their experiences on this subject. So let's get into our panelists. First, we have Jennifer Schoenig, who is the head of workplace and corporate real estate strategy at Guardian Life, who has also served as the Women's Leadership Network ERG co-lead during 2020 and 2021, and is a member of the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Council. We also have on our Zoom, Lisa Chobe, who is a senior client solutions manager at LinkedIn, and also has been within the Enterprise Solutions organization. She's also served as a board of directors at the Penn State Smeal Alumni Society Board. And our last but not least panelist is Meryl Rosenthal, who is the CEO, co-founder, and chairperson of the board for FlexPaths, which is a human capital consultancy that have been pioneers for flexible work and has been committed to helping organizations and their people be future ready. Prior to founding FlexPaths, she spent 20 years in the financial services and insurance industries and has served as a president of a highly regulated federal trust company. And moderating our panel today, we have Gina Wurtenberg, who is an associate professor of professional practice in the Management and Global Business Department at Rutgers Business School, as well as an executive director of the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation. Gina has authored 2 books on sustainability, was an HR director for development, quality, and organization effectiveness at PSE&G. Again, I'm honored to be in the presence of all these amazing and talented women, and I hope you really learn a lot from what they have to say today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. I think the conference has been going fantastic. Do you agree?
Yes.
Awesome. Wonderful. So as I was preparing for the session today and thinking about these issues, I realized that I have been personally and professionally engaged with these issues for more than 40 years. And I remember that I first published a special issue on women and the future in the Psychology of Women Quarterly in 1981. And it was focused on every issue we're dealing with today. We talked about sex role and workplace flexibility. We talked about the interdependence of childcare. We talked about all issues around motherhood and everything. So somebody asked me last night, are you optimistic? And I would say after today, and this is true, I'm optimistic because we're not just talking about it or publishing about it, which is important, but we're actually doing something about it. And I'm really excited about our panel. So let's start with a few fun facts. So if you take this definition, employee engagement is defined as being highly involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work and workplace. Based on this definition, what percentage of employees do you think are engaged at work? Anyone? What percentage?
30.
What?
30.
30. Yes?
55%.
55.
15.
15.
70.
Anyone else?
70.
Okay, so the answer is in the US, employee engagement is at 32%. Who said 30?
Wow.
Probably took my class. But fully 72% of high performers are engaged at work. Globally, engagement is even lower at 23% of all employees, with 59% not engaged or quiet quitting. How many of you heard the term quiet quitting? And 18% loud quitting. Actively disengaged, you would actually be better off paying them to stay home. Well, we're all staying home now, but I mean, literally not work because of the damage they're doing. And this lack of engagement is costing the global economy. Anyone want to guess how much? $8.8 trillion. It accounts for 9% of the global GDP. So interestingly, according to the Gallup State of the Global Workplace in 2023 report, which comes out every year, employee engagement is 4 times as much influence on employee stress as work location. And in their everyday work, people's feelings of, as we heard this morning, involvement, enthusiasm, engagement, inclusion matters much more in determining their stress than where they are sitting. That said, overall, women experience more stress in the workplace than men. Fully 57% of women in the US and Canada region reported experiencing stress a lot the previous day. And men also, 48% of men experience those same feelings. So while we know that hybrid and remote work is here to stay, in my role at the Rutgers Institute for Corporate Social Innovation, we do research and we partner with experts like Meryl and Jennifer and Lisa to figure out how on the ground to make a difference. So with that, let's dive into our panelists' perspectives on these issues, on where we are today and what we need to do to engage and retain women across their life stages, their lifestyles and career stages. So I'm going to start with Lisa and share with us some of your perspectives, please.
Of course. Thanks, Gina. So excited to be here and speaking with you all. So when it comes to attracting, engaging, retaining women, those are all 3 different topics, and it just can't be solved with like one blanket solution. So starting off with attracting women to organizations, I'm still fairly early off in my career. So I think about what organizations, what companies that I was drawn to when I was in the career fair. And it was companies that brought in alumni to speak highly of the company. And this is why. It really helped connect with that company and knowing that I can see myself in the individuals who are being recruited or recruiting for these companies. And I feel like that same sentiment could align with women in the workplace. So when you're trying to attract women to these companies, ensuring that you have women who are speaking highly, can speak up the benefits, and that will definitely help when it comes to bringing in more women into an organization. And then when it comes to engaging and retaining, as you mentioned, that's extremely expensive to not get right. And so that's separately than just having people speak well of your company. You also have to have a lot of initiatives, a lot of programs that you can pour back into women to ensure that they feel like they can thrive at your company. And so some of this can be informal. So basically you're on a team, you are connecting with other like-minded individuals, and you guys are able to communicate and support each other. But there should be a lot of formal programs done. Some organizations utilize ERGs, so those are employee resource groups, where those are solely dedicated for women, some specifically to where they are in their career, to ensure that there are resources, programs to help uplift them and feel supported and help them feel engaged, because the more engaged they are, the more value they could bring to an organization.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. Now let's hear from Meryl. What are your opening thoughts?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to see everyone. Thank you for having me and having us. And it's wonderful to see a gentleman in the room, because we're going to be looking to you as well with some of the things that we're hoping to accomplish. I think, Gina, you hit the nail on the head that this workplace conversation is not new. And I'll just date us back to 2005. When the Harvard Business Review put out an article entitled "Off Ramps and On Ramps: Keeping Talented Women in the on the Road to Success." And it really spotlighted how professional women were stepping out of the workforce in some pretty large numbers, and they were dealing with caretaking responsibilities, and it was difficult for them to navigate the long hours, what they deemed as unsatisfying work, and the rigidity of schedules, and they just didn't feel that they had a lot of choice. And they felt the obstacles, and there were lots of obstacles in getting back into the office, and they paid a price for it, and the article really summed that up. And without going into too much, as a woman in that time, I faced many similar situations given personal and professional challenges that I had. And it gave me no choice but to off-ramp. Flexibility would have solved the issue because it would have given me options. But at that time, flexibility was more of a perk, more of an accommodation, more of a benefit. Those words were what were used. And in fact, I remember we had to fill out a request form in order to request, to ask for it. We had to literally give the business case on a piece of paper as to why we wanted flexibility. And then our boss had the ability to say yes, no, or maybe so. So given this, I really believe that structural cultural changes needed to be made in companies to make this worthwhile. And that's why I started the business. It was really kind of an opportunity for me firsthand to see these opportunities to help companies really change their workforces and their workplaces to create anytime, anywhere work. Just very quickly, a couple more points. I think the pandemic did some great work to uplift the whole conversation about flexibility. It kind of mainstreamed it. It forced organizations that were uncomfortable with flexibility to put their toe in the water or do more. What's now happening is we are seeing some companies, more than I'd like, that are moving back into where things were pre-pandemic. There's a lot to say about why that's happening, but it's happening. And that's going to have a profound effect on women and on people in general, but knowing that we're discussing women. So really, I think what we need to do is really use this time to remind organizations that this is about their talent strategy. This is about attracting, engaging, and retaining their best people. And it's really about weaving flexibility into the career advancement and talent development conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Jen, what are your thoughts?
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Pleasure to see all of you and your smiling faces. I have lots of thoughts on this because this is what I do all day long at work. And whether it was pre-pandemic or now, obviously post-pandemic, how we work, where we work, our work from home program, which is what we used to call it. Now it's our return to office program because we were home. We weren't even allowed to come in if we wanted. The number of emails I used to get about, can I please come in at least get my shoes out of my head? So, you know, this is a big, you know, topic of the most senior executives in companies today. And when I tell you how much time our executive team thinks about this, they think about the employee voice, which is a very strong, loud voice of, we want to stay home. We felt we were productive. Our life priorities have changed since the pandemic. All the way through our executives saying, we need to make sure we have strong business outcomes. So it's kind of a seesaw, right? Of where's the right balance? And we're trying to find that balance. And in my view, when we think about women and women's issues, flexibility is crucial. I believe hybrid work is here to stay for the foreseeable future. And to me, hybrid is a mix of in the office and at home. So our ability to be empathetic as a culture, as an organization, to what anybody is dealing with, but again, focusing on women, right? We tend to be the caregivers. And sometimes we're juggling lots of different priorities, both for ourselves and how we care for ourselves, how we care for maybe our children, our partner or spouse, our parents, whatever it is that your life is throwing at you this given week or month or year. So I think that, you know, we need to keep having the conversation and we need advocates. And I know there was a panel this morning about advocates and allies and having all people in the company, right? All of our colleagues be advocates to this. Imagine what it's like, you know, if you have your partner who has hybrid or flexible working as well, so that way they can offload some of the burden of you. And that to me is really crucial. So I think we have to continue the conversation. We have to make sure that our colleagues feel that their issues are understood, because if they feel that they're understood and heard, they have the opportunity to do their best work when they're actually working wherever that is.
Fantastic. So to our main topic for today, we've already touched on a lot of issues, but let's dive in. So how can companies truly leverage workplace flexibility to better engage and retain their female talent across the life cycles and career stages? So Lisa, tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, so kind of just adding on to what I had mentioned earlier. So just attracting them. So ensuring that the women who are being and are really successful in these organizations can speak to all these benefits, and also that there is a level of visibility of leadership. So when you're at a company and you are aspiring to be in a certain role, seeing someone who looks like you, seeing a woman in a leadership position can really help to feel that that's a role that you can aspire to be in. So ensuring that your organization is reflective of course, more women, but just a diverse workforce. So ensuring that that's definitely ingrained into a company can wholly or 100% attract more women into the organization. And then so outside of attracting, engaging, retaining, so communities is important, but also ensuring that women have advocates and mentors, and also sponsors as well. I feel like mentors are extremely helpful, but sponsors are the individuals who will really advocate for you, the people who will speak when you're not in that room, and to ensure that you have those opportunities to uplift your career, engage in different opportunities that you might not have if you didn't have those individuals speaking highly for you on your behalf.
Yeah, I love that distinction between mentors and sponsors. So the sponsors are the ones that speak for you when you're not in the room. Absolutely. And Meryl, what are your thoughts?
Sure. You know, I think that when people when companies limit themselves to flexibility as just a policy or just some communications, it says it looks like a check in the box, right? So to me, it's really about making it cultural and building it into every part of the organization. So for example, embedding it across the employee life cycle. So in other words, it should be touched upon when people come to a company, they look at the website, there should be something that talks about their position around flexibility. When they're attracting talent, how they attract talent, how they recruit, onboard, do performance management. It should be part of every talent and career development conversation, and not just where people work, but when and how they can work. And also it should be something, I believe, that's not just about now. I mean, I'm sure all of you, when you think about your lives, and I think women are just so masterful, nothing against you. I think they're very masterful in planning, right? We're always the planners. We're thinking 5 years ahead. So we might come to a company and be like, I know that I have a parent that's going to need some care, or I know I want to start a family, or I'm single and I know that I want to do some travel. I want to get ready for a race. You know, I want to really get myself involved in something outside of work. You don't want to wait until that event happens and be like on the defensive or feel like you have to then like negotiate. Having the opportunity to have time on your side and think about it, and having a manager who's thoughtful about that and sees people as whole people. And I love what you said, you know, Jen, about the fact that if you have two people, I always love what you say. The fact that you have two people that are doing hybrid, think about how that changes the tone of a home, right? When you have that ability. So I think it's the same thing with a leader. If they can anticipate and take pressure off their employee by having conversations that open the door to this. Now, again, flexibility isn't something you just give away, right? There has to be performance and guardrails, and we have to make sure that we have a trusting relationship and people are performing. But I think that all could be packaged in a really positive conversation, so that people know what's possible. And I also think companies can give their leaders and recruiters like scenarios and personas and script them a bit, because this might not be an easy thing to do. So if I was, you know, if I have a bunch of Gen Zers that are my employees, I might not know how to tee this up. I might not know how to do it, but maybe with a little bit of talking points and a little bit of guidance, I'd have a starting point. And also by giving it that emphasis, we can be more diverse. We can think about people of all types of walks of life, all ages, generations, backgrounds, you know, economic status. I mean, for some people, it has been a huge hardship to go back to work. When you think about how, I mean, our daughter worked during the summer, and she has to pay $400 like a month just to pay for her train ticket, just to get into the city. I'm not saying that that's the only answer, and we should solve for that, but I think there's a big opportunity to kind of think through who our people are and solve for the big picture about what in office and out of office could look like. And finally, I think women need to be proactive. It's not about just the manager, the leader starting the conversation. Anyone who's an employee, I think with good intention can start a positive dialogue with their bosses and managers and say, hey, I'd like to have a performance conversation. And I'd like to know your receptivity to how flexibility can play a part in how I advance in this company and keep my role and do the things that I'd like to do inside and outside the office.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jen, you want to add?
Sure. I'm a big believer of inclusion. I think that when people feel that they're included, they feel comfortable that they can be themselves, like their real true selves, and then they will be able to be fully present. And I think the way we do that, and it's a lot of what Meryl was saying, and of course a lot of what Lisa was saying too, but I believe that flexibility is a combination of where you work and when you work. So flexibility could mean I come into the office, but I have to leave at 2 o'clock to pick up my child maybe, or to be there when my child gets home from school, but then I'm gonna get back online later. Or I need to take some time out of the office to go care for a loved one, or whatever that might be. Or maybe you just work better in the later hours of the day. Maybe you prefer to work 11 to 8, and that's your best because you're not a morning person. Or maybe you prefer really early 4 or 5 a.m. and you would like to be done a little bit earlier. And I think that if we can find a way to bring that into our environments and allow our colleagues to do their best work where and when they do their best work, we'll get the maximum productivity out of our colleagues. But I think a lot of that starts with talking about it. If we don't talk about it, we're never going to be able to resolve it. So inviting people, again, if you feel included and you feel that your voice is heard, you're going to be more willing to raise your hand and share your voice. And that's the environment we're trying to create at work, where we have the capability for colleagues to actually speak up and share their story, share their experiences so that we can learn from that and we can grow as a culture, as an organization, and have our best outcomes. So that's really what we want in our company, right? We want engaged colleagues who feel included and can perform at their best.
Wonderful. I'm reminded when I was working at PSEG, I was an HR director years ago. And there must have been something in the water because 7 different women in my organization got pregnant. Every one of them, it was like everybody said, can I have a meeting? And I'm like, oh no, not enough. And they all wanted to stay, but they needed flexible arrangements. And this was before we had flexible arrangements. So I decided it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And I said, okay, we're gonna do this. And we ended up retaining almost all of them. A couple of them after they had their babies. I said, I do go back. Okay, so let me ask Lisa. So what do you believe is the future of hybrid work, and how should organizations prepare for it while prioritizing women's needs?
Yeah, so I feel as though the future of hybrid work is all about technology, not only just new technology, but advancing the technology that we already have. So when you think about the pandemic, a lot of the platforms that we were using all the time were already made, but there was just more advancement to it, more changes like Teams, Zoom, Google Meet. We were all using those, but there was just so much improvement that needed to be done to meet the time. So I feel as though as hybrid work evolves, technology will help ensure that it evolves as well. So some of that stuff, I think a lot of it will be around collaboration. So ensuring that all the platforms that we have, that we're able to collaborate, no matter if you're in person or at home, virtually, and being able to have that same experience is key. Of course, ensuring our data is safe, so around cybersecurity, and then also just ensuring that everyone just gets the same experience, no matter, because I feel like there's a missed opportunity if you don't feel as though you're as productive or feel as included, depending on where you are and where you're working. One of the biggest words right now, I would say one of the biggest buzzwords is AI, which I think will definitely help us work smarter. At LinkedIn, on our platform, we've launched a few different tools that will not only help recruiters, but job seekers work more efficiently. And so I know that AI will be extremely important when it comes to advancing that technology. But one caveat is that a lot of this technology can have some biases. So ensuring that we are giving feedback and surveying all employees and making sure that the technology isn't hurting women in any way, making sure that there aren't any discrepancies when it comes to ensuring that all of this technology is just as beneficial for us. So know that technology will really be advancing the way, but making sure that we adjust when needed to make sure that it's aligned with everyone and beneficial for everyone.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw that on LinkedIn. I was doing a post and all of a sudden it was telling me what I wanted to say. So perfect segue to biases. And let me ask Meryl. So research has shown that traditionally underrepresented and marginalized communities prefer access to flexible work options. What can you share about the potential biases that may result and how can they be combated?
Thanks, Gina. So I'll take the first point. Research shows that traditionally underrepresented and marginalized communities prefer access. I think that what I've observed is that during the pandemic, a lot of people who were not in the office, really, they took a welcome break from a lot of the things that were going on in the office that they didn't like. You know, whether that was sexism, ageism, politics. You know, I'm not saying every company has that, but to certain degrees, certain companies do. And for some people, it was a welcome break to be away from that and not be distracted and deal with it. So I think that's one thing that when people came back, things maybe didn't change as much. And you know how it is, if you take a break from something and then you come back to it, sometimes you dislike it even more. And I had a CEO ask me, he's like, why? He goes, we didn't pay for parking before the pandemic. And then people came back and we're not paying for it again. Why are they mad? Think about it, because they didn't pay for it.
Exactly.
You know, people tasted something different. So again, some of those insights that we might all laugh and smile about, sometimes people in different positions, if they don't get it, they just don't get it. And that's why we have to remind them to get it, right? But it's not always easy. So that's the first part. In terms of the biases, you know, there is proximity bias, and I think you might all, just to define it, it's described as how people in positions of power treat workers who are physically closer to them more favorably, and the misnomer that those who work remotely are less productive and aspirational. So we can think about that, right? That's pretty dangerous, right? Because if, let's say, I'm having this meeting and then Lisa hangs up, Lisa might be the right person for a project I want to give her, but she's not there. And I look at Jen, I'm like, you know what? Jen, what about that project? Because she's here and we're having the meeting after the meeting, right? Or having a conversation, or maybe she made some kind of eye contact or shook her head when I said, what about a project? That puts Lisa at a total disadvantage, and yet she's present, she's professional, and she's competent, right? So we have to be very careful about that proximity bias, that we don't allow ourselves to get taken by that. We also have to be careful that because some people who maybe are from marginalized communities prefer to stay working off-site, that we don't lose sight of the fact that we shouldn't promote them and treat them as they should be treated, which is equally. And I think, again, some people might want to continue to work from home and because of the comfort that they had, and then they're not maybe given some of those benefits. So I think we have to make sure that we don't have discrimination, microaggressions, and we have to talk about it. And I think, Jen, again, you know, talking about it is really important and not waiting for it to happen. The other thing I will just say is about microaggressions. Women who experience microaggressions are 3 times more likely to think about quitting and 4 times as likely to experience burnout. So again, going back to some of the things we heard, you know, these things are all connective tissue, right? Flexibility, burnout, engagement. You know, we can't necessarily separate them. They're very intertwined. And then the other thing I might say is that organizations need to own this. And there's realities that are happening. And I think we have to create safe workplaces. We have to have transparency. We have to revisit our policies. And we also have to make sure our leaders are trained and made aware of some of these dynamics. And leaders, I always say people don't leave companies, they leave their teams and their bosses, because that local environment is what they come to every day. That's the trusting place that you come to every day. So leaders have a lot on their shoulders, they have a lot to deal with, but I believe that they are the ones that can be the pivotal parts of organizations in making sure that this bias doesn't happen and ensuring that everybody can show up and bring their best without feeling that they have to, you know, suffer from any situations that we just discussed.
Great. So building on that, I'm going to ask Lisa, what specific initiatives do you think organizations can take to ensure that remote women employees have equal access to networking opportunities, career growth prospects, and leadership roles within the organization?
Yes, I think the easy answer is honestly just to make it to make it hybrid to avoid any of those biases. So gone are the days where I feel like the only way you're able to network and meet a leader is actually at a happy hour or in person. So ensuring that you have the opportunity to do so virtually is important as well. And I think this could be done in a few different ways. So just having overall networking events that are hybrid for all members of an organization, but also specifically for women. And this is because I feel like at times, these opportunities are not always advertised or encouraged for women to go. So ensuring that these opportunities are for women only, give them that space to ensure that they are being focused on, developed on, and also backed up by leadership. So ensuring that there are resources and leadership there to kind of help out these women is really important. So just having it hybrid, I think that proximity bias as mentioned is real. I can only think of all the people that I've met that have helped me in person, and just thinking back about how many people have helped me that I've met virtually is just the numbers are starkly different. So ensuring that those opportunities are there hybrid is extremely important. But I also do think that it's going to be easier said than done. Obviously, the technology that I mentioned, the collaboration tools are still being worked on. So just having different suggestions that you can provide are also helpful in being proactive and ways to do so. But that hybrid aspect will definitely help ensure women get the same opportunity to advance themselves in their career.
Great. And so building on that, let's hear from Jen about how your organization has embraced hybrid work.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned earlier that, we see hybrid as the way of the, path forward for the foreseeable future. So we have actually sat back and had a very careful look at what other companies are doing. We did not want to be a leader on return to office. We wanted to be fast, medium speed follower. There were a lot of companies who came out and made bold announcements early on while the pandemic we thought was kind of fading, and then it would come back, and then it was fading and it would come back. And we had some, I call them fits and starts ourselves, a couple of times where we announced, okay, it's time to start coming back. We asked at first for people to come back kind of, as they're comfortable. And then we saw that really most people weren't comfortable. So, so then we started to say, all right, time to start coming back in a little bit more. And we made an announcement internally that we're committed to hybrid. So we've stated that. And to us, hybrid is 2 or 3 days in the office. And so there's still some flexibility at home, but we do fundamentally believe that there is a huge advantage to being in person. When you can look somebody across somebody across the table, when you have a chance to network, when you have a chance to collaborate in person. Could we do it virtually? Absolutely. But do we think there's an advantage in the room? It's a lot of what Meryl and Lisa just talked about, right? Like, there is an advantage when you're together to build a relationship with somebody. And then when you have a problem to resolve, to be able to reach out to that person, and now you have a relationship, and they're probably more willing to help you resolve that issue. So we're trying to really build on that in our company.
So how have you tried to maintain that flexibility working from home while still yielding the benefits of online and on-site?
So we think that reprioritizing work-life balance, that's happened, right? Our people have done that, colleagues have done that, and we've heard that from them. We've surveyed our colleagues. We know that they're not going to be in 5 days a week. If we made a 5-day-a-week policy, we've lost them. So we're not going to keep them engaged. They will quiet or loud quit, either one. They'll talk with their feet, as we call it. So we've instituted on-site presence with purpose. We want colleagues to come on site when there's a reason to come on site, not to check a box. In some cases, it's a little bit of check a box, but more it's to be there, for a purpose. It's an event, it's a town hall, it's an opportunity to collaborate. And we have about a third of our colleagues who are coming in 2 or more days a week. And about 80% of our total colleague population comes in with purpose. So it's not even everybody. We do have colleagues who are just completely at home. And based on the work they do, it's based on where they live. They're not in close proximity to an office. So our leaders need to lead. They need to set tone, they need to be engaged, they need to work with their teams to make sure that they're getting the benefits of being on site, but also getting the productivity and engagement of their colleagues when they're at home.
I think Lisa has a question.
Yeah, I had a question. We talked about a lot of these topics throughout the day so far, and we still have a couple more sessions to go, but what data do you all need from us in academia? What research do you want us to be doing? And this is about multi-generational, right? So at the different life stages, what can we be looking at? Because that's part of what we want to do at this conference is to inform our research questions by actual experiences in industry.
That's a great question. I think that the needs of colleagues change, right? When you're early in career, you have certain needs. It's probably to feel like you belong in the company, to understand the company, to understand, to be mentored, right? To understand what it's just like to start working, right? You graduate college, you've been a student your whole life. That's been your job, is to learn. And now you have a new job and you're new to the working world. I think, what are the needs of a brand new colleague or employee? But then you can also get into, as you advance your career, and I don't even mean necessarily like your title and your level, but just your through life, right? The stages of life, your needs change. What is it that you need from your job, from your employer? I think we probably all have a good sense of what those are, but I think that's the kind of research that would help me, because I mentioned I have corporate real estate, I have workplace design. When I think about the design of a workplace, what somebody who's 22 might need is very different than what somebody who's 60 might need, who is like maybe towards the end of their career, and everybody in between. There's neurodiversity too, right? So there are people who have different needs in the workplace. Some people can flourish in an environment that's loud and bustling, and some people just can't work at all like that. They need a quiet corner to do their work. So we have all of that variety to think about as well. So I think that's some of the research that I would love to see.
Yeah, another thought, and this is not a judgment, this is kind of a reality. Oftentimes, decisions around flexibility fall on the shoulders of human resource leaders. And they don't always have the sharpest business case sometimes to bring forward. So oftentimes they're in a defensive position when they're asked, why are we doing this? What is it costing us? So I think the more hard numbers that we have to show if we offer flexibility to this generation, if we offer it this way, this is the savings you derive. You would retain more of these people. In other words, things that are very measurable. I also very much believe, and in my company, this is what we're doing. We're working now more with CFOs because we believe human capital is something that is not quantified properly in organizations. Someone like Jen is, always has the business case when she's thinking about the various constituents and our CEO and everybody that needs to kind of quote unquote message. But we were sidebarring a little bit. We believe the CFO is the next next stakeholder that I think by bringing him or her into the conversation earlier, there's a lot more justification that person can provide by saying, let's take a look at different metrics that I see at the bottom on our bottom line that are suffering, and align and equate that to if we did some different things on human capital, we would have better results.
Okay, we had a question come in, and I think Jen's gonna read it and answer.
I'm going to do my best.
To answer it.
In the hybrid world, is it equally productive if different employees are hybrid on different days? In my field, we find that offices are mostly empty since everyone's telework days fall on different days of the week. All meetings are still virtual. So we've actually implemented what we call core in-office days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are core in-office days. So if you're coming in to the office, you should come in one of those 3 days. And the reason we picked that is pretty easy. Really, before the pandemic, anyway, everybody's at home on Friday. Monday, it's the Monday blues. Most people don't really want to come in on Monday. So we have found that, like, by kind of bringing more colleagues in on those days, that then we have more full offices, more bustling and opportunity to connect and meet with people. So all meetings are still virtual is an interesting one. We do have hybrid meetings. So people could be in a conference room, others are in, on Teams, we use Teams, Zoom, whatever technology. There was a period of time where we considered that everybody who's in the meeting, unless they're all in the room, everybody should be on the computer. But then people felt like they were coming into the office and being attached to their computer all day, so we shifted away from that, and we do go back to in the room and on the computer. But then we have put out etiquette guidelines for how to handle those meetings. You have to make sure you engage the colleagues who are virtual. And by the way, in my company, we don't have one office. We have multiple offices. You could be in the office, but virtual to a meeting. So that's also an interesting dynamic as well. So you could still be coming in, but virtually attending. So I hope that helped.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now, when we look at a situation whereby some days people come to offices, some days they're at home, and all meetings are still being held virtually. And you still maintain the cost of the big office. What was the impact on your performance?
Financially, the cost of keeping
Yeah.
office when it's unoccupied, that's a good question.
The cost of keeping an occupied office is enormous. It's enormous. I mean, one of the things I'm doing now is I'm subleasing our excess space. I mean, most real estate people are. But the analysis that's required to determine what the right amount of space is, when you're probably in the low, right? We were up here before the pandemic. We were obviously zero we're coming back. But I don't know that where we are now is the right level. We're trying to figure out what's the right level. Where are we going to, where's our new flat line, right? And we've tried to predict what that is and say, based on that and based on where we think we're going to be, we have determined how much space we think we need.
Okay.
And plus, when people are coming in 2 or 3 days a week, that's not a great use of real estate to give them an assigned seat either. Right. So
I have just like a follow-up comment to that though, because, I think there's been a move because of the pandemic, and going back to the office to do hoteling, right? But like, for me, it feels so impersonal. You don't know where people sit, like you're the people that you want to connect with. And so I do feel like the physical, like thinking about the physical space is so important to also getting people into the office and connecting.
people are creatures of habit, so they really do like their space. They like to leave their stuff, not have to set up and break down, their space every day. So, we're trying to balance that as well. We've tried to say, if you're coming in 3 or more days a week, then your seat can be assigned. If you're coming in 2 or fewer, that's not great use of my space. And then I need more space, and actually a significantly higher amount of space, which is, it adds up to millions of dollars a year.
Sounds like a great research project for the combination of finance and human experience and organizational behavior and structure. It's a great project. We'll take one more question. I think we're almost out of time. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So it's a question / thought. I'll try to make it make sense, but it's something I've been thinking today, navigating the various different sessions. I hope I was the person you pointed at. Great. So my question that I thought about and then kind of answered myself, but I'm going to say it anyway, was, in the lens of inclusivity, have any of the studies that we've talked about kind of throughout today asked questions about resources that are intended to meet various accommodations or specialized needs outside of having some kind of disability or something that's prescribed? As humans, we all have different needs, and so what are we doing in the workplace to be able to meet those? And for example, I was just thinking all day about a sitting standing desk. Some people really, really want that, or they want a treadmill under their desk. And it's yeah, that seems like a trivial thing and an expensive thing. Maybe a company doesn't want to invest in it, but it can directly relate to how someone perceives their workspace, because maybe their back hurts from being at work all day. So they want to be at home where they maybe bought themselves a treadmill or whatever it may be. So I'm just wondering if any research has happened around what some of those needs are. And if not, it might be beneficial to do so. But when I thought more about it, I was the biggest hurdle I think that happens in those conversations is money is a big thing. So somebody might ask for something like a sitting standing desk, and that's going to cost a lot of money. But an employee might need, instead of a no, but maybe let's explore these other options. So if you can't get that sitting standing desk, maybe we can get you resources to elevate your desk, the little desktop stand that you put your stuff on top of, or whatever it may be. And that's just one example, but I hope that made sense.
Want me to take that?
Sure.
So, there's a lot of research around this actually, and this is one reason why I am in favor of not assigning seats actually. Today you might want to sit stand. Tomorrow, you might be happy to sit because maybe your legs are bothering you, right? And you're not going to stand. So by having that choice, you can reserve this seat today and that seat tomorrow. Or maybe you're going through menopause and you're having hot flashes and you want to sit in the cool area of the building because there's always a cool area of the building. We all know what it is, right? Or that hot sunny area of the building because it's a cold winter day, or whatever. Or you're just, you prefer it where it's nice and warm. So or the darker or the brighter area or the noisy area or the quiet area.
Right.
So that's, to me, having choice is actually a really big, it will, I think, bring out the opportunity for colleagues to really do their best, given what's going on with them at that day. Or maybe in the morning, it's one thing, in the afternoon, it's something else too. I've had somebody tell me, you should only let people book a desk for the morning and then a separate desk for the afternoon, or the same desk. Now, again, people tend to gravitate to the same desk all the time. I know that. We've seen that. So we haven't exactly see it work in principle, but it's on paper, it sounds like it's going to work. We have sit-stand desks at work, not in some locations we have, that's the only thing we have. And others we've invested it in a little bit, and that's based on when the office was built. But we also have, other types, other things we're trying to build: wellness rooms. We have prayer rooms. We're trying to build, we have lactation rooms that are dedicated lactation rooms. We're trying to build maybe a menopause room.
Amazing. That all falls into kind of what I was asking about. So.
Excellent.
Was one thing
Unfortunately, we're just
Oh.
about out of time. Lisa, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, there was just one thing I wanted to add around the research aspect. I feel like there might not be general research, but research should definitely be done within the organization, because this can fall under a wellness benefit. In my organization, we have different wellness benefits that fall under ergonomics that can ensure that no matter if you're working from home or in person, that you have all the resources and all the different tools that you need to make sure that you're working comfortably. But I do think it's a great point, and it definitely can be something that can fall under a well-being or a wellness benefit for organizations. So it's something that they should do research on.
Thank you so much. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but we're going to stick around. I'll be around, and we'll be around the rest of the day. I want to make a huge thank you to Lisa for joining us, and Jen and Meryl. We had an amazing panel. And in closing, I also want to make a big appreciation to Lisa Kapowitz and Viviana. And thank you so much.